My name is Marissa Hale. I'm 38 years old, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was ordinary in the comforting way people sometimes envy. I worked as an IT technician for a local company, quietly fixing printers, recovering lost passwords, and resetting routers while the world moved on around me. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. Our house wasn't big, but it was ours. My marriage wasn't fiery, but it was steady, or at least I believed it was. My husband Daniel and I had been together for almost a decade, married for 7 years. We weren't perfect, but we got along. Routine dinners, weekend errands, shared chores, the natural rhythm that settles into long-term partnership. We had our ups and downs, but nothing that ever hinted at the storm that was coming. Then, several months ago, something shifted. Daniel joined a new upscale gym downtown, the kind with eucalyptus towels and membership fees that made my eyebrows twitch. He started working with a personal trainer, tracking macros, prepping meals, and committing to what he dramatically called his transformation era. At first, I was proud of him. I cheered him on, packed his lunches, celebrated his early progress. It felt good to see him motivated, healthy, excited about something. But slowly, week by week, his excitement morphed into something else, something sharper, colder, more arrogant. As he toned up and shed weight, he replaced his wardrobe with expensive designer clothes. He walked differently, hips forward, chest out, head high, as if he was suddenly above our old life. He started staying out late with his gym circle, a small group of people who mirrored his new lifestyle. And somewhere along the way, he began looking at me differently too, not with admiration, not with warmth, but with a quiet, simmering dissatisfaction. It began with small comments. You could take better care of yourself if you tried, or maybe you should join my gym. Show some effort. Then the criticism escalated. He complained about my job, my clothes, my hair, even the way I folded laundry. I asked if something was wrong, if something in our marriage needed attention. He always brushed me off. Nothing's wrong, Marissa. Don't be dramatic. But the distance between us grew. I could feel it. The way he looked past me at dinner, the way he flinched when I touched his arm, the way he avoided conversations unless they revolved around himself. Then one morning, everything snapped. I had just poured my coffee when Daniel walked into the kitchen in his gym gear, still sweaty from an early workout. Without even looking at me, he said, "I'm not happy anymore. I think I need to explore other options." The words hung in the air like smoke. I stared at him, not understanding. "What options?" I asked quietly. He shrugged, sipping his protein shake. "I've outgrown this marriage," he said, as if he was announcing a weather update. "Look at me now. I have opportunities I didn't have before. I don't want to be stuck." Stuck with me. That was the moment the shock gave way to something heavier, something cold and settling. He spelled it out a minute later. "I'm filing for divorce." I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I stood there, coffee cooling in my hands, staring at a man I no longer recognized. After a long moment, I nodded. "If that's what you want," I said softly, "then do what you must." 3 days later, I received the official notice from his lawyer. The arrogance in those documents was jaw-dropping. Not only was he pushing for a quick divorce, but he demanded far more than his fair share. He wanted the house. He wanted a large portion of my savings. He wanted spousal support, even though he worked full-time, earned good money, and had recently taken on lucrative side work through people he met at the gym. It was the entitlement that stunned me most. It wasn't enough that he wanted to leave. He wanted to walk away richer for having abandoned me. I hired a lawyer, a calm, sharp man who looked through the papers and shook his head. "He's trying to leverage his new confidence to cash out," he said. "Don't worry, we're not rolling over." His reassurance helped, but the emotional blow remained. I spent nights sitting awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment in my marriage, every red flag I ignored. I remembered the late nights he claimed were for extra cardio sessions, the gym parties I wasn't invited to, the sudden obsession with looking perfect. And then something darker surfaced in my memory. Text alerts from a woman at his gym he never bothered to explain, the way he angled his phone away from me, the smirk he wore when he thought I wasn't looking. A seed of suspicion took root. Still, I kept quiet. I focused on facts, not emotions. If Daniel wanted to make this a fight, then I would prepare myself for one, calmly, methodically, without giving him the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. 2 weeks later, we sat across from each other at mediation. Daniel walked in wearing a fitted shirt that clung to his new muscles, hairstyled like he'd spent an hour perfecting it. He smiled at me, but it wasn't the smile of a husband. It was condescending, triumphant, as if leaving me made him superior. Throughout the session, he made snide comments. She never tried to improve herself. I needed someone who could keep up. She held me back from growing. Each sentence was a dagger wrapped in a polite tone. I didn't rise to his bait. I answered questions calmly. I refused his outrageous demands. When mediation failed, Daniel left in a huff, muttering that the judge would see things his way. But something had changed inside me during that session. Beneath the hurt, beneath the confusion, a quiet determination took shape. If he thought I would just crumble, he was wrong. One night, unable to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and began gathering everything. Financial documents, old emails, screenshots, every inconsistency, every lie, every piece of evidence showing I never held him back. My lawyer encouraged it. Document everything, he said. His attitude will matter. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's behavior grew more boastful, more reckless. He started dropping hints about someone new, a woman from his gym circle, a coworker who got him, who understood his lifestyle, who made him feel seen. He didn't hide it. He wanted me to know. He wanted me to hurt. But instead of breaking me, it clarified everything. He hadn't outgrown me. He had replaced me. And the more he flaunted this new life, the more I realized something else. He believed he was untouchable, that his new body, new confidence, and new woman gave him the power to walk all over me. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Part 1 closes as I look at the divorce papers again, really look at them, and understand exactly what I need to do. Not out of revenge, not out of spite, but because I deserve better than being discarded like a stepping stone, and because I was done letting him win. When mediation collapsed, Daniel walked out of the building with the smug swagger of a man who believed the world would bend for him. The fitted shirt, the expensive cologne, the sculpted confidence, he wore them like armor. He didn't look back at me once, not even when the automatic doors slid shut behind him. He didn't have to. In his mind, he had already won. But in mine, something had finally clicked. My lawyer and I regrouped that afternoon. He skimmed through Daniel's demands again, tapping a pen against the table. He wants the house, half your savings and spousal support, he said, emphasizing each point as if repeating it made it less absurd. But he earns almost the same income as you, on some months even more, thanks to his new consulting gigs with people from the gym. I nodded. He thinks looking good gives him leverage. My lawyer gave a dry laugh. Judges don't award support based on biceps. Still, the situation wasn't funny. Daniel's entitlement was spiraling, and over the next few weeks, it got worse. He started coming to the house, our still shared property, to pick up belongings he claimed he needed. Every time, he left something behind. A snide comment scribbled on a sticky note, a crumpled receipt from an overpriced protein smoothie pinned to the fridge. Once he even left a list, things I should improve if I ever wanted to keep up with someone like him. I took photos of everything, documented every insult, every provocation, every attempt to paint himself as the prize I'd supposedly failed to maintain. My lawyer said those little pieces mattered more than I realized. They showed a pattern: belittling behavior, entitlement, manipulation. But the real shift happened the day my phone buzzed with an alert from our joint credit account. A luxury spa weekend for two, over $1,000, a place Daniel had never taken me, but somehow felt entitled to use our shared finances to enjoy with someone else. I disputed the charge immediately. My lawyer's eyes lit up when I told him. He used a joint line during divorce proceedings? That's financial misconduct. Perfect. I hated that word. Perfect. There was nothing perfect about discovering your husband was treating your shared money like a tab for his affair, but it strengthened my resolve. Behind all of this, I suspected the truth, that the person Daniel was flaunting around wasn't just a random gym buddy. She was younger, energetic, and part of the same fitness circle that praised him like a minor celebrity. He strutted around town with her, letting acquaintances see him with his upgrade. Word spread quickly. People from work whispered that they saw him at restaurants, openly affectionate with a woman who wasn't me. Oddly, I didn't feel jealous. I felt detached, as if I was watching a stranger act out a messy performance he thought was impressive. One afternoon, I ran into a friend who had unknowingly witnessed Daniel and the woman at a cafe. Her voice lowered as she spoke. It looked like they wanted to be seen, she said, like they were performing for an audience. Exactly. Daniel wasn't trying to replace me. He was trying to rewrite our history with himself as the victim and hero all at once. So I focused on strategy. My lawyer and I built a file thicker than a textbook. We gathered pay stubs, bank statements, text messages, screenshots. We organized everything into neat folders. Meanwhile, Daniel strutted through life as if nothing could touch him. His confidence was so blinding, he didn't even realize how much he was giving away. The most telling moment came during the pre-trial settlement conference. He arrived with a new watch, a designer brand that cost more than my monthly mortgage, and the same arrogant smirk he'd worn for months. But this time, he wasn't alone. The woman was there. She didn't come inside, but she waited outside the hallway, leaning against the wall, scrolling through her phone like she had all the time in the world. When Daniel walked past her after the meeting began, she gave him a little wink, and he straightened up as if rising to the heavens. Inside the room, his lawyer argued that Daniel deserved financial support because he had invested time in developing himself and needed help transitioning into his new lifestyle. The phrasing was so absurd the judge raised an eyebrow. My lawyer leaned close to me. They really think this will work. Daniel interrupted at one point, claiming I had held him back, that I lacked ambition, that he needed to rebuild after years of being anchored to someone who didn't match his energy. I felt the words like tiny cuts, but I didn't flinch, not once. Instead, I let my lawyer dismantle every sentence. He presented income comparisons, highlighted Daniel's stable work history, pointed out his consulting gigs, and then, almost casually, he dropped the bomb, screenshots of Daniel's texts bragging to a friend. Finally hot enough to get a real catch. Going to dump her and upgrade. The room went still. Daniel's face drained of color. His lawyer fumbled for words. The judge's expression tightened. Not anger, but disapproval, hovering dangerously close. And for the first time, Daniel's confidence cracked. After that conference, something shifted in him. He stopped being smug. He started being desperate. I saw it when he looked at the folders my lawyer brought. I saw it when he realized the judge wasn't impressed by his theatrics. I saw it when the truth he thought he could bury began to surface with undeniable clarity. But the final straw, the moment that cemented Daniel's downfall, came unexpectedly. My lawyer received a call from another attorney, someone representing the very woman Daniel was parading around. The attorney had a sworn statement, a surprising one. Daniel and this woman had already discussed future plans, real plans, marriage, moving in together, the assumption they'd be financially secure once Daniel won big in the divorce. This wasn't just infidelity, it was premeditated financial exploitation. When my lawyer presented that statement to the court file, I knew Daniel had no idea what was coming. Part 2 closes with me standing in my living room, files spread across the dining table, the weight of everything pressing down on me, but not in fear, in clarity. Daniel thought he was climbing into a new life. He didn't realize he was building his own downfall one careless choice at a time. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, I knew exactly how it would end. The courthouse felt colder than I expected. Not physically, just in the way sound echoed off the marble floors, in the way people lowered their voices when stepping into the hallways, in the way tension sat thick in the air. I walked in with my lawyer beside me, holding a folder that had grown heavier with every week of preparation. Not because of the papers inside, but because of everything they represented. Every insult, every betrayal, every moment Daniel thought I wasn't paying attention. Daniel arrived minutes later. He wore a flawlessly fitted suit, hair slicked back, posture stiff with confidence he had no right to feel anymore. He shot me a quick glance, almost nervous, before masking it with the same superiority he had carried for months. His lawyer whispered something to him, but I could tell from the twitch in his jaw that Daniel was already rattled. He should have been. We sat on opposite sides, the distance between us feeling symbolic. A long stretch of polished wood separating the woman he used to consider safe and invisible from the man he had become, vain, reckless, and painfully short-sighted. His attorney began with a dramatic sigh, launching into a monologue about Daniel's personal growth, his awakening, and the self-discovery that supposedly revealed he had been stifled in the marriage. According to the narrative they spun, he needed financial support to continue his journey of self-improvement. They argued that I was complacent, insufficiently supportive, and unable to match his new lifestyle. Daniel stared straight ahead, never looking at me once. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't want to see the person he had underestimated. When it was our turn, my lawyer didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue theatrically. He simply presented facts, one after another, like laying down stones across a river. Steady, unshakable. First came the financials. Pay stubs showing Daniel earned nearly the same income I did. Records of his side consulting work. Evidence he could fully support himself. Then came the joint credit card misconduct. The luxury spa weekend for two. The reckless charges. The documentation proving he tried to hide them. The judge's expression hardened. Next were the text messages. The ones Daniel thought he deleted. The screenshots where he bragged, "I'm finally hot enough to get a real catch. Going to dump her and upgrade." And the friend's warning reply, "Careful, he might not go down without a fight." Silence swallowed the courtroom. Daniel's face went pale, color draining like water from cloth. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his tie. My lawyer didn't stop there. He brought out the sworn statement from the woman Daniel had been seeing, the future plans they discussed, the expectation that Daniel would secure big assets from the divorce, the implication that she had a stake, financial or otherwise, in the outcome. The judge's patience faltered. Irritation flickered across their face. Every piece of evidence built a picture Daniel couldn't talk his way out of, a man attempting to use the court system for personal gain while parading an affair as if it were a reward. Under cross-examination, Daniel tried to regain control. "I was venting," he insisted. "Those messages were jokes." His voice cracked slightly. He looked at the judge, not at me. "You know how guys talk. I didn't mean it literally," my lawyer countered gently. "Yet your financial requests align perfectly with what you told this woman would happen." Daniel stumbled. "We weren't planning anything serious. She misunderstood." "Enough," the judge finally said. What followed was 20 minutes of judicial dismantling. Firm, unfiltered, direct. The judge questioned why Daniel believed he needed financial support when his income was nearly identical to mine. They reprimanded him for using the joint credit account during a divorce. They pointed out the contradictions between his claims of being held back and his own messages praising me before his sudden transformation. But the most devastating blow came when the judge addressed the entitlement woven throughout his demands. "This court is not here to reward personal reinvention at the expense of another party," they said sharply, "nor will it validate opportunistic behavior." The ruling came swiftly. The house would be split equitably. No spousal support, no additional assets granted. He was ordered to reimburse me for the disputed credit charges, and the court file would reflect his misconduct. Daniel looked stunned, as if the ground beneath him had tilted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even grief. It was the dawning realization that every assumption he made, every arrogant choice, had led him here. When we stepped out into the hallway, he approached me for the first time in weeks. "Marissa, wait." His voice cracked on my name. I stopped, not because I cared, but because I wanted to hear the ending of the story he had written for himself. He looked smaller somehow, his confidence gone, his shoulders slumped, his eyes glossy. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I got carried away, with the gym, with everything. She didn't matter. None of it mattered. I don't know what I was thinking." "You were thinking you could trade me in like an outdated phone," I said softly. "No anger, no venom, just truth." He swallowed hard. "We can fix this. We don't have to go through with all of it. I'll drop everything. I'll stop the divorce. We can start over." I shook my head slowly. "You filed for divorce because you thought you could do better. The only reason you regret it now is because you didn't get what you wanted." "That's not true." He reached out, but I stepped back before his hand could reach mine. "It's completely true," I said. "You never wanted me back. You wanted your lifestyle back." His face crumpled. His voice went small. "Please." But the strange thing was, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no bitterness, just relief, a release. As if a heavy weight had been lifted, and I finally understood that his validation was never worth chasing. Over the next few weeks, the paperwork was finalized. Daniel moved out fully. I decided to sell the house, not because I needed the money, but because it felt like a chapter that deserved a clean ending. Mutual friends told me the new woman vanished the moment she realized Daniel wasn't bringing in a windfall. He was alone now, alone with his regret, alone with the consequences of confusing physical transformation with moral superiority. But I didn't rejoice. I didn't mock him. I simply moved forward. What I learned was simple. Not all transformations are good ones. Some people lose themselves trying to become someone else. And some people don't find out who they truly are until they hit the ground they thought they were standing above. I wasn't bitter, I wasn't broken, I was free. And I finally understood that sometimes the most painful endings are the ones that give you back your life.